Uneek 4x4 rock sliders for the Mazda BT 50 and PX Ranger extended cabs. Now I've been looking for a rock slider, more sidestep for a little while now, and settled on the Uneek design. They're one of the few rock sliders that actually have a flat tread step that you can actually stand on, where most of the other rock sliders tend to have just this area filled in with checker plate, and you still have just the tube to stand on. So to make things a little bit easier, you may as well have something you can utilize as a step. I don't really classify my Mazda as a much of a four-wheel drive vehicle, but like they're so long and low that, you know, as soon as you drive them anywhere off-road, you end up on the sills. So this was a good option, I thought, initially. So today I'm going to give you just a quick overview on the side steps, the good and the bad, and whether they're really worth their money. Now, these side steps are probably one of the dearest on the market at around $1,600 plus freight. So, you know, you'll be expecting quite a lot. You'd expect that they're going to fit up quite well and be well finished. Now, we'll start on the good points. They're a nice looking step. They're quite well finished. The welds are very good. The textured paint finish is very nice. And the clearance is good. They're notched to clear, the chassis quite well. It's still a lot higher than most of the others on the market. Their bracketry that mounts to the chassis allows for a good tight fit of the brackets against the chassis. A nice grip on the tread. So that all seems pretty good. The paint does mark quite easily. If you have a rock in your boot and happen to get on here, it will definitely scratch the paint as your foot twist to get in and out of the car. They have high lift jacking cutouts in the plate. They mount very sturdily onto the chassis, but I found when fitting these things I had a gutload of problems, mainly on the left hand side. The main issue being the side step not sitting hard onto the chassis rail on this middle mount underneath here. We'll go into a bit more detail. I'll slide underneath and I'll tell you about all the issues I had. So one of the first problems I encountered when I offered the step up to the vehicle was the inner bracket here didn't have a cutout for the DPF dosage pump. It has a cutout over here, but no cutout there. This bracket just is a direct copy of the driver's side, which has a cutout for the exhaust hanger bracket. So that was one of the first things I come across, that I had to cut and notch this bracket here to clear the dosage pump. That was quite frustrating that they don't include a cutout there. The next thing I came across was the middle mounting bracket. I'll try and get this in focus. Was sitting off the chassis by about 6 mil. So I thought, oh, okay, well maybe it's, you know, a bend or variation in the chassis, but as it worked out, the square rectangular hollow section, I should say, has a nice big banana in it. So that actually bows away from the vehicle in the middle here, where this mount is, thus pulling it off the chassis on this this side by about 6 mil, and on the driver's side or right hand side by about 3 mil. There was no way in the world I could pull it in. The steps are just that stiff that you can't do that. I'll get around to tying that wiring up one day. The other thing, the outriggers that support the side step, they're really strong. Have a W shape to them, but it's a channel on the inside and it's just going to fill up full of dirt. So I ended up drilling a couple of drain holes in them so you can let the water out at least, or wash the mud out. The other thing, they supplied the mounting brackets with hex head bolts, which it seems a bit silly for me. For a rock slider, I ended up replacing them with some button head stainless steel bolts, just to make it slide a bit easier on the on rocks and things. And the other big bugbear was the rear bracket here. It really interferes with the rear brake lines on the inside mount. Now I've got a Davis Brown long range tank. I've had to trim the inside of this bracket here, the rear bracket, so it didn't sit on the fuel tank. No biggie there. I expected to do that. But you can see up in here where the brake lines pass right onto the bracket. Now this bracket comes up right underneath the brake lines and the fuel return line. There's no real mention in the instructions on how to clear that, which was okay, fair enough, you work it out yourself, but having the long range tank probably doesn't make it easy to get the brake lines out of the way by any means. So after a lot of dicking around, I managed to bend the return fuel line up higher and lower the brake lines down lower to sit underneath the crush tube. Now each one of these middle and rear mounts have a crush tube or metal tube that goes across the top of the chassis to pin into this plate here. The rear one was too long, and the front one, or the middle one I should say, was probably a little bit on the short side. I had to cut the rear one down to 92 mil because the chassis is 92 mil ish wide at this rear section, and about 104 mil wide at the front, or in the middle mount I should say. So we get the back in focus. So you know, another sort of poor issue they actually. Now just regarding to the Treadstep, it doesn't sit flat, it actually tilts slightly towards the vehicle, which sort of looks a bit out of place to me. It should just be sitting actually flat. You could probably fix it up by packing up some washers underneath the stainless steel mounting screws just on the inside here to fix that up, but it also has a wave in the step too, due to the fact that it pulls down quite tight on this edge here, which is a good thing, but it puts a sort of a whoop in it wherever the screws are, and then it raises and lowers. So you can sort of see that from the side. It's a bit hard to show it on the camera. The other thing is they have brackets welded in here, which are to mount accessories to, they say, or brush bars on the front. I ended up cutting them off. They just look really silly sitting there with no real purpose at all. Now, these are a $1,600 step, so if you're going to pay someone to install them, you're going to have to allow a fair bit of time. Like it took me, you know, nearly trying to work out on the passenger side there about 8 hours of stuffing around to get all the bits and pieces together and work out why the steps didn't fit properly, whether the chassis was bent, whether the steps were bent, why the crush tubes were the wrong length, all that sort of things. So this is something to take into consideration if you're going to purchase some. I'm not overly impressed with them. In fact, I was really pissed off fitting them, thinking that you know, when you go buy something that's a premium product, it should fit a damn sight better than what these have.